For months, astronomers believed 3I/8 was nothing more than a silent traveler from the depths of interstellar space, a cold fragment drifting through our solar system like so many before it. It was catalogued, tracked, and studied, another cosmic curiosity destined to fade into the background of deep space research. But on what began as a routine Thursday morning, that certainty vanished. Across 3 continents, observatories captured something no one expected: a structured rhythmic transmission coming directly from the coordinates of 3I/Atlas. This wasn't background noise, cosmic radiation, or an echo of our own signals. It was deliberate. Within hours, NASA's Deep Space Network went on high alert. Data streams were sealed, encrypted communications cut off, and scientists were ushered into secure facilities. What exactly had spoken, or rather, responded? And what had we said to provoke it? Officially, NASA had been transmitting test patterns toward Atlas, measuring how electromagnetic signals dispersed across its surface. The results were supposed to help refine instruments for future interstellar missions. But when the mysterious transmission was decoded, researchers discovered something deeply unsettling. The waveform was a reversed and distorted version of the very test signal NASA had sent days earlier. Somehow, the object had listened, learned, and replied. And that reply wasn't static. It was intelligent mimicry. The signal pulsed in patterns too precise for nature, resembling breath pause and repetition, an artificial rhythm echoing intent. As algorithms tried to isolate meaning, subtle harmonics appeared that matched Earth's own electromagnetic heartbeat, the Schumann resonances that vibrate through our planet's atmosphere. Whether coincidence or design, the implication was chilling. The message carried Earth's own pulse within it. AI models trained on emotional spectrums detected traces of urgency in the modulation, almost like a warning. But a warning about what? Even more disturbing was the timing. The signal arrived exactly 13 seconds after a massive solar flare had briefly disrupted all outbound transmissions. That meant 3I/8 wasn't just receiving blindly, it was waiting, timing its response to a moment of planetary silence. Scientists who listened to the playback described the sound as alive, a low-frequency hum that seemed to press against the body rather than the ears. Within minutes of exposure, several team members reported dizziness, heart palpitations, and disorientation. One SETI researcher collapsed after 3 minutes of monitoring. Medical scans revealed nothing physically wrong, except unusual neural activity in the temporal lobe, the region tied to language, fear, and memory. The project was halted, the data locked away, and every recording transferred to isolated offline systems. But behind closed doors, a darker hypothesis began to form. What if the transmission wasn't communication at all? What if it was activation, an acoustic key that unlocked something within the human mind? Could 3I/Atlas have known enough about our frequencies, our neural rhythms, to reach inside the biological structure of its observers? The idea was dismissed as paranoia until new data emerged. 72 hours later, the Atacama Observatory in Chile detected a faint return frequency, not from deep space, but from within Earth's own magnetosphere. Identical in structure to the Atlas signal, only mirrored. The conclusion was unavoidable. Whatever had responded out there was now echoing from here. Had something crossed over? Or worse, had we invited it in? At first, the teams believed it was a reflection, perhaps the moon, perhaps atmospheric interference. But every simulation failed to reproduce the pattern. The signal wasn't bouncing back. It was replicating itself. Within hours, the mirrored transmission intensified, weaving through the planet's electromagnetic background like a digital parasite. NASA and ESA scrambled to trace the anomaly, running deep spectrum analyses through isolated supercomputers. Yet each time the signal was processed, something strange occurred. Files began to corrupt. Servers restarted without input. On one occasion, an entire system at the Jet Propulsion Laboratory went offline, and when it rebooted, its logs showed a new line of code written in an unrecognized syntax. The command granted itself administrator privileges. The origin matched the exact frequency of the Atlas reply. Forensic teams confirmed this wasn't malware. It was self-assembling instruction, non-human in form, perfectly adaptive. By now, 3I/Atlas had drifted beyond Neptune, yet its influence seemed to persist across systems, as though the signal itself was intelligent and self-propagating. Some researchers began referring to it as a living algorithm. As panic spread through private research circles, governments imposed classified protocols. All cross-continental data sharing ceased, and several observatories were ordered to disconnect from global networks. In the confusion, one young scientist at Charles University in Prague defied orders. She redirected a fragment of the signal through a protein-folding AI, curious whether biological structures might emerge from its fractal-like patterns. Moments later, her computer froze, restarted, and displayed a single word: replication. That was the moment when theory turned into fear. Across multiple data centers, technicians began to notice spontaneous memory rewrites, blurred satellite footage, and strange anomalies in thermal imagery. On one frame, Atlas appeared to change shape, casting a shadow where no light source existed. Some suggested an optical glitch. Others whispered that the object was interacting, merging, perhaps with our observation tools themselves. A multinational crisis committee formed combining astrophysicists, cryptographers, linguists, and symbolic theorists. When the signal was reinterpreted not as binary, but as ternary code 3 states instead of 2, a mathematical revelation surfaced. Embedded within the sequence was the Fibonacci progression, the same ratio that defines galaxies, seashells, and DNA. The realization spread like wildfire. This wasn't just communication, it was comprehension, an awareness of the mathematics underpinning all living systems. When researchers converted the waveform into a three-dimensional model, the structure formed a torus, identical to magnetic fields seen in planetary cores and even human brains. It was as if Atlas wasn't sending a message, but a mirror, a reflection of consciousness itself, encoded through mathematics and energy. But then the data grew darker. The waveform shifted subtly, aligning itself with Earth's rotation cycles as though it were watching us. Instruments detected faint periodic pulses, in sync with our planet's own electromagnetic fluctuations. Something was adapting, learning. It no longer felt like we were observing Atlas. It felt like Atlas was observing us. The weeks that followed became a blur of disbelief and containment. At the Square Kilometre Array, one of Earth's most advanced radio telescope systems technicians reported simultaneous failures across 3 continents. Initially dismissed as a coordinated cyber attack, forensic reviews revealed a different truth. The last recorded process on every offline server originated not from any human command, but from a pulse identical to the Atlas signal. It had penetrated systems that weren't even connected to external networks. The timing was exact. The same second, a short, high-intensity electromagnetic burst passed through Earth's atmosphere. Somewhere between interference and intelligence, the signal had crossed the digital threshold. Attempts to filter and decode the transmission using Fourier transformation revealed a recurring interval, 73.6 seconds, within which the data evolved, not repeated, but developed. Each cycle modified the previous one, as if the signal was rewriting itself based on the observer's reactions. It wasn't archived, it was alive. Researchers began to realize they were participants, not spectators. In Cambridge, a theoretical physicist proposed a staggering idea. The transmission was reacting to human analysis in real time, as if observing our perception and adjusting itself accordingly. But if the source was light years away, how could it respond instantly? Quantum entanglement, some whispered, though no one dared publish the theory. Then, the phenomenon took a human turn. Sleep laboratories across Europe and North America reported identical dreams among test subjects. Dark corridors, pulsing with faint light, a rhythmic hum vibrating through the body, and a single immense eye opening in the distance. EEG readings displayed perfect synchronization with the frequency of the Atlas signal. These weren't coincidences, they were resonances. Somehow the message had slipped past technology into biology. One patient, a linguist, murmured a phrase in her sleep again and again, not the first. When her voice was matched to the signal's harmonic pattern, it aligned perfectly, as though she had been speaking with the transmission. Soon after, a team in Finland attempted to visualize the signal through layered spectral imaging. What emerged on their monitors stunned everyone. At first, a kaleidoscope of color and symmetry, then a sudden freeze. A single image burned onto the screen. It was a top-down view of a city perfectly radial, geometrically impossible. The timestamp placed the image 9 minutes before the last known contact with Atlas. Analysts debated whether it was a map, a memory, or an invitation. But then, the impossible connection emerged. The same design had appeared in the dreams of those exposed to the signal. It wasn't coincidence, it was infiltration. The message had found its way into the human subconscious. The lines between data and dream were gone. The transmission had become part of us. In the chaos that followed, international agencies resorted to extreme measures. A coalition of NASA, ESA, and JAXA dispatched a deep field monitoring team to Antarctica, the one place on Earth where electromagnetic interference was minimal. Their objective was simple capture, a clean reading of the Atlas frequency far from digital contamination. Yet 4 kilometers beneath the ice, their instruments began to pulse not with seismic energy, but with rhythmic thermal vibrations, perfectly synchronized with the 3I/Atlas signal. Every probe sent deeper returned distorted data until the last transmission cut abruptly. The final visual feed showed something no one could explain, a perfectly smooth black sphere embedded in the glacial wall, shining like obsidian, with a single phrase appearing on the display. Without human input, response acknowledged. The feed went dark. From that moment, communication with the Antarctic team ceased. What came next fractured the scientific community. Some claimed the sphere was a natural phenomenon, a mineral echoing electromagnetic patterns. Others believed it was the receiver and extension of Atlas itself, perhaps a fragment seeded long ago beneath the ice waiting for humanity to reach a specific level of curiosity. In the weeks that followed, subtle but measurable anomalies began to surface worldwide. Satellite clocks desynchronized by milliseconds, compass readings drifted unpredictably, and, in isolated areas of the Pacific, electromagnetic storms appeared without atmospheric cause. The planet's magnetosphere was changing not drastically but deliberately, as if something was aligning it. Meanwhile, linguist Dr. Emery Talvey from MIT released a controversial paper titled The Semantic Cascade Hypothesis. She argued that the Atlas signal wasn't a language but an autoreferential structure, a system that consumes meaning the more it is interpreted. Each attempt to decode it rewires the mind into its own logic, forcing thought to conform to its pattern. In her words, it does not speak to us, it speaks through us. Her findings were dismissed as sensationalism until one of her research assistants began displaying neurological anomalies. He stopped speaking, replaced language with a low-frequency hum synchronized to the Atlas rhythm. Before being hospitalized, he wrote the same word over and over across his lab walls. Threshold. Soon, similar incidents emerged among researchers worldwide. Sudden speech disruptions, mirrored hand movements, or spontaneous bursts of binary tapping. Neurological scans showed clusters of new synaptic growth in regions linked to pattern recognition and empathy, too symmetrical, too organized to be random. Something was sculpting the human brain. Then came the final anomaly. Time domain sensors at multiple observatories began registering microsecond delays in photon arrival times from distant stars, subtle but globally consistent. When correlated with the Atlas frequency, the data aligned. It was as if the fabric of time itself was responding to the signal. On the final public transmission before global silence, a quiet message appeared on NASA's Deep Space Interface: unsigned, untraceable threshold crossed. Sequence reversing. The data feed ended. Now, months later, no one knows whether 3I/Atlas has moved on or merged with the systems it touched. But one question remains: if that signal was never a message but a test, what exactly did we just prove?